Chapter 27. A Conversation with a Naked Engineer. Ostap Bender's appearance at the editorial office was preceded by a series of significant events. Unable to find Ernest Pavlovich during the day, the apartment was locked, and the owner was likely at work. The grand strategist decided to visit him later, while he strolled around the city. Consumed by a thirst for activity, he crossed streets, paused in squares, flirted with a police officer while helping ladies onto buses, and generally acted as if all of Moscow, with its monuments, trams, state trust employees, little churches, train stations, and billboards, had gathered for a party in his honor. He walked among the guests, chatted amiably, and found a warm word for everyone. Hosting such a vast number of guests somewhat tired the grand strategist. Besides, it was already 6 o'clock, and he needed to head to engineer S.H. Chukin's place. But fate had it that before meeting Ernest Pavlovich, Ostap had to delay for a couple of hours to sign a minor report. In Theater Square, the grand strategist was hit by a horse. Completely unexpectedly, a timid white animal rushed at him and nudged him with its bony chest. Bender fell, drenched in sweat. It was very hot. The white horse loudly apologized. Ostap quickly got up. His mighty body had suffered no damage. This only increased the reasons and opportunities for a scandal. The welcoming and courteous host of Moscow was unrecognizable. He swaggered over to the embarrassed old cab driver and punched him in his padded back. The old man patiently endured the punishment. A police officer ran over. "I demand a report," Ostap shouted with pathos. In his voice there were metallic notes of a man whose most sacred feelings had been offended. And standing by the wall of the Mali Theater, on the very spot where a monument to the great Russian playwright Ostrovsky would later be erected, Ostap signed the report, trying not to look at his enemy, the cab driver, and gave a short interview to the rushing Persitsky. Persitsky didn't shy away from dirty work. He carefully wrote down the name of the victim in his notebook and hurried on. Ostap proudly continued on his way, still reliving the attack by the white horse and feeling a belated regret that he hadn't managed to give the cab driver a piece of his mind. Ostap, taking the stairs 2 at a time, climbed to the 7th floor of S.H. Chukin's building. Here, a heavy drop fell on his head. He looked up. A small waterfall of dirty water poured right into his eyes from the upper landing. For things like that, you need to punch someone in the face, Ostap decided. He rushed upstairs. At the door of S.H. Chukin's apartment, with his back to him, sat a naked man covered in white patches. He sat right on the tiled floor, holding his head and rocking back and forth. Around the naked man was water, pouring out from under the apartment door. "Oh, the naked man groaned. Oh. Tell me, are you the one pouring water here?" Ostap asked irritably. "What is this, a place for bathing? Have you gone mad?" The engineer looked dimly at Ostap and sobbed. "Listen, citizen, instead of crying, maybe you should go to a bathhouse. Look at what you look like some kind of picador." "Key?" the engineer mumbled, chattering his teeth. "What key?" Ostap asked. "From the apartment. Where's the money hidden?" The naked man hiccuped with astonishing speed. Nothing could confuse Ostap. He was starting to figure things out, and when he finally did, he almost fell over the railing from laughter, which would have been useless to fight. "So you can't get into the apartment, but it's so simple." Trying not to get dirty on the naked man, Ostap approached the door, stuck the long yellow nail of his thumb into the crack of the American lock, and carefully began to turn it from right to left and from top to bottom. The door opened silently, and the naked man ran into the flooded apartment with a joyful howl. Faucets were roaring. In the dining room, the water formed a whirlpool. In the bedroom, it stood like a compound, on which night slippers floated quietly with a swan-like gait, butts huddled in a corner like a sleepy school of fish. Vorobyaninov's chair stood in the dining room, where the current was strongest. White crests formed at all 4 of its legs. The chair trembled slightly and seemed about to float away from its pursuer immediately. Ostap sat on it and tucked his legs under himself. Coming to his senses, Ernest Pavlovich, with cries of "Pardon, pardon," turned off the faucets, washed his face, and appeared before Bender naked to the waist and in wet pants rolled up to his knees. "You simply saved me," he shouted excitedly. "I apologize, I can't shake your hand, I'm all wet. You know, I almost went crazy. It looked like it was heading that way. I found myself in a terrible situation." And Ernest Pavlovich, reliving the terrible incident, sometimes darkening, sometimes laughing nervously, told the grand strategist the details of the misfortune that had befallen him. "If it weren't for you, I would have perished," the engineer concluded. "Yes," said Ostap, "I had a similar case, even a little worse." The engineer was now so interested in everything related to such stories that he even dropped the bucket he was using to collect water and began to listen intently. "Just like with you," Bender began, "only it was in winter and not in Moscow but in Mirgorod in one of the cheerful intervals between Makhno and Tutnik in 1919. I lived with a family, desperate Ukrainians, typical property owners, a 1-story house and lots of different junk. You should note that regarding sewage and other amenities in Mirgorod, there are only cesspools." One night I jumped out in my underwear right into the snow. I wasn't afraid of catching a cold. It was a matter of minutes. I jumped out and automatically slammed the door behind me. The frost was about 20 degrees. I knock, they don't open. You can't stand still, you'll freeze. I knock and run, they don't open. And most importantly, not a single soul in the house is asleep. The night is terrible. Dogs are howling. They're shooting somewhere. And I'm running through the snowdrifts in summer underpants. I knocked for a whole hour. I almost died. And why do you think they didn't open up? They were hiding property, sewing banknotes into the pillow. They thought there was a search. I almost killed them later. All of this was very close to the engineer. Yes, said Ostap, so your engineer S.H. Chukin. I am, just please don't tell anyone. It's embarrassing, really. Oh, please introduce tert-a-tert, in private as the French say, and I'm here on business, comrade S.H. Chukin. I'll be extremely happy to be of service to you. Grand merci, it's a trifle. Your wife asked me to stop by and pick up that chair from you. She said she needs it for a pair, and she's going to send you an armchair. Oh, please do, exclaimed Ernest Pavlovich. I'm very glad, and why bother yourself? I can bring it myself today. No, why bother? It's nothing for me. I live nearby. It's not difficult for me. The engineer fussed and escorted the grand strategist to the very door, which he was afraid to cross, although the key had already been prudently placed in the pocket of his wet pants. Another chair was gifted to the former student Ippolit. Its upholstery was slightly damaged, but it was still a beautiful chair and exactly like the first one. Ostap was not worried about the failure with this chair, the fourth in a row. He knew all the tricks of fate. Happiness, he reasoned, always comes at the last minute. If you need to take tram number 4 at the Smolensk market, and besides the 4th, the 5th, 17th, 15th, 30th, 31st, B, G, and 2 bus lines also pass there, then be sure that first G will pass, then 2 15ths in a row, which is generally unnatural, then the 17th, 30th, many BS, again G, 31st, 5th, again the 17th, and again B, and when it starts to seem to you that the 4th number no longer exists in nature. Will slowly come from the Bryansk station, covered with people, but getting into the car is not difficult for a skilled tram passenger. You just need the tram to come. If you need to take the 15th number, then don't doubt it. First, many cars of all other numbers will pass. The cursed 4th will pass 8 times in a row, and the 15th, which so recently ran every 5 minutes, will appear no more than once a day. You just need patience and you will wait. To this harmonious system of reasoning, which was based on chance, the chair that had floated into the depths of the freight yard of the October railway station cut in with a dark mass. Thoughts about this chair were unpleasant and evoked a painful doubt. Grand strategist was in the position of a roulette player betting exclusively on numbers, one of those people who want to win 36 times their bet at once. The situation was even worse. The concessionaires were playing roulette where 0 fell on 11 numbers out of 12, and the 12th number itself was out of sight, was God knows where, and possibly held a wonderful win. The chain of these sorrowful reflections was interrupted by the arrival of the chief director. His very appearance aroused bad feelings in Ostap. Wow, said the technical director. I see you're making progress. Just don't joke with me. Why did you leave the chair outside the door? To make fun of me. Comrade Bender, muttered the leader. Oh, why are you playing on my nerves? Bring it here quickly. Bring it. You see that the new chair I'm sitting on has increased the value of your acquisition many times over. Ostap tilted his head to the side and squinted his eyes. Don't torment the child, he finally boomed. Where's the chair? Why didn't you bring it? Ippolit Matveevich's rambling report was interrupted by shouts from the floor, ironic applause, and tricky questions. Vorobyaninov finished his report to the unanimous laughter of the audience. My instructions, Ostap asked menacingly. How many times have I told you that stealing is a sin? Even back when you wanted to rob my wife, Madame Gritsitseva, in Stargorod, I realized that you have a petty criminal character. You'll never get slapped, rest assured. The most your abilities can lead to is 6 months without strict isolation. For a giant of thought and the father of Russian democracy, the scale seems small, and here are the results. The chair that was in your hand slipped away. Moreover, you ruined a good spot. Try to pay a second visit there. That Avasalim Machiznyurenkov will tear your head off. Your happiness is that an idiotic case helped you, otherwise you would be sitting behind bars and waiting in vain for a package from me. I won't carry packages for you. Keep that in mind. What is Hecuba to me? You are after all not my mother, not my sister, and not my lover. Ippolit Matveevich, aware of all his insignificance, stood dejectedly. Here's the thing, dear, I see the complete futility of our joint work. In any case, working with such a poorly cultured companion as you, for 50%, seems absurd to me. Wollen nicht wollen, but I have to set new conditions. Ippolit Matveevich gasped. Until then, he had tried not to breathe. Yes, my old friend, you are sick with organizational impotence and pale weakness. Accordingly, your shares are reduced. Honestly, do you want 20%? Ippolit Matveevich shook his head decisively. Why don't you want it? Is it not enough for you? And not enough. But that's 30,000 rubles. How much do you want? I agree to 40. Robbery in broad daylight, said Ostap, imitating the leader's intonations during the historic bargaining in the janitor's room. Is 30,000 not enough for you? Do you also need the key to the apartment? You need the key to the apartment, Ippolit Matveyevich stammered. Take 20 while it's not too late, or I might change my mind. Take advantage of the fact that I'm in a good mood. Vorobyaninov had long lost the smug look with which he had once begun the search for diamonds. He agreed. The ice that had moved in the janitor's room, the ice that had thundered, cracked, and hit the granite embankment, had long since become shallow and melted. There was no ice anymore. There was a widely spilled water that carelessly carried Ippolit Matveyevich, throwing him from side to side, sometimes hitting him against a log, sometimes colliding him with chairs, sometimes carrying him away from these chairs. Ippolit Matveyevich felt an inexpressible fear. Everything frightened him. Garbage, oil residues, broken chicken coops, dead fish, someone's terrible hat floated down the river. Maybe it was Father Fyodor's hat, a duck cap torn from him by the wind in Rostov. Who knows? The end of the road was not visible. He was not washed ashore, and the former leader of the nobility had neither the strength nor the desire to swim against the current. He was carried into the open sea of adventures.